Okay, we're going to start with talking about how to solve equations. And the first type of equation we're going to talk about is linear equations. This is the one that you guys are most familiar with. This is usually the very first type of equation that you start solving. So a linear equation is of one variable is this, is if A, B, and C are integers, remember what integers are, right? The no decimals fractions. But if you can write an equation in this form, something times x plus or minus something equals a number, if it could be written that way, we refer to as a linear equation. Really quick, remember we talked about the different names for polynomials? If our highest power is a 1, we called it a linear polynomial. That's why this is called a linear equation, because your highest power is always a 1. All right, so if I have an equation like this, I just want to find out what b is equal to. So I have negative 1 equals b over 2. So the way most of us learn this is we want to get b by itself. So I want to isolate b or get b by itself. So the way we do that is by doing the inverse operation, the inverse of what's happening. So normally if I were going to plug a number in here for b, I'd take b, I would divide it by 2, and that would give me my answer. Well, since I'm dividing by 2, I'm going to do the inverse, and I'm going to multiply by 2. Now we can only do that if we multiply one side of the equation by 2. I can only do that if I also multiply the other side of the equation by 2. So I'm going to multiply this side of the equation over here by 2 also. All right, so what happens is over on this side I got 2 times negative 1. That's a negative 2. Over here on this side, what happens is this. Think of that as being 2 over 1. So we end up getting 2b over 2. Well, 2 over 2, I reduce that. That comes out to be 1b. And 1b is really just b. So there's my answer right there. It comes out to be negative 2. So we've solved the equation. All right, but what does it really mean to solve the equation? So we're really going to focus on this today. What it means to solve the equation is that if I plug the negative 2 back in for b up here in the original equation, that should make the equation true. So let's check that. I'm going to go negative 1 equals, and I'm going to plug negative 2 in for b right there, right? That's what we got for our solution. So negative 2 over 2. All right, is that a true statement? Yeah, negative 2 divided by 2 does equal negative 1. So it checks off. Okay, so we really have solved the equation. All right, here's another really simple one, right? I have 170 equals 10r. Remember, 10r really means 10 times r. So again, we're going to think of the inverse operation here. So if I have 10 times r, to get rid of the 10, I'm going to divide by 10. Well, if I divide one side of the equation by 10, I have to divide the other side of the equation by 10. Well, what happens over here, right, is a 10 divided by 10, that reduces down to be 1. 170 divided by 10 is 17. And 1r is really just r. So really the 10s, we say they cancel out or go away, but what it really means is they reduce down to be 1, and 1r is really the same thing as r. So we are saying 17 is our solution. Let's just double check that. 170 equals 10 times, and then we got a solution of 17. So is that true? Does 170 equals 10 times 17? It does. So we have solved the equation. All right, so now I got an equation that's just a little bit more complex. Like there's some more steps that we have to do here. So what we're going to do, I'm going to write down some steps here, okay? So the number one thing we're going to do on these problems, and write these down with me, is you're always going to make sure you simplify both sides of your equation. So we're going to start with that step right here. All right, so if I look over here, when I think of both sides, think of the equation as being like the divider. Over here, 24 cannot be simplified. So I can't do much here. Over here on this side, we've got like terms. We've talked about like terms. 5 and negative 1 or minus 1 are like terms. So the 4x cannot be combined with anything, but I can combine the 5 minus 1. So 5 minus 1 is 4. Okay, now I get down to this step right here. There's actually a second step. We're going to leave that blank for just a second. So I'm going to put step number 2. And that step number 2 deals with when you have x's on both sides of the equations. But we're just going to leave that blank for just a second. This one does not have x's on both sides. It only has x's on one side. Okay, step number 3 is normally we're going to add or subtract next. So we're trying to get x by itself from this point on. We're going to do that by adding and subtracting. So I have 24 equals 4x plus 4. I got to get rid of the 4 times x, and I got to get rid of the plus 4. Start by the adding and subtracting. So I'm going to minus 4 from the right side of the equation. That means I have to minus 4 from the left side of the equation. So 24 minus 4 is 20. equals 4x, 4 minus 4 is 0, so it goes away. Okay, we're all the way down to here. Now 4 times x, the last thing is we're going to multiply or divide. So we're going to multiply or divide. So I'm going to divide by 4, so 5. So it looks like my solution is 5. Let's check and see if that works. So go back up to your equation, plug it in there. I have 24 equals 4 times 5 plus 5 minus 1. Okay, so let's try that. 24 equals, that'd be 20 plus 5 is 25. 25 minus 1 is 24. Okay, it checks off and makes the equation true. So there's my solution right there. X is equal to 5. All right, I'm going to show you another problem. Let's do the one on the left, and then I'll have you guys try the one on the right. And then I'll show you one where you have to add in that step number 2. For now, for both of these, we can still skip over that. All right, so step number 1 is make sure you simplify both sides of the equation. There's nothing to simplify over there. Over here, though, I have like terms. The negative 8a and the minus 6a are on the same side. I can just combine those together. So minus 8 minus 6 is a minus 14a plus 5. Okay, I get to here, I add or subtract. Again, remember, I'm trying to get a by itself, so I got to get rid of the negative 14 and the plus 5. The negative 14 times a, I have to divide by negative 14, and I have to subtract 5. Do the subtraction first. So minus 5. So negative 23 minus 5 is a negative 28 equals over here, that's 0, so it goes away. Okay, we're almost there now, multiply or divide. If it's a negative 14, you've got to divide by negative 14. And the reason why is a negative divided by a negative, right? Negative 14 divided by negative 14 is a positive 1a, which is just a. Negative 28 divided by negative 14 is a positive 2. So there's my solution, at least I think it is. Let's double check it. So I go negative 23 equals negative 8 times 2 plus 5 minus 6 times 2. Let's see, so that'd be negative 16 plus 5 minus 8. Negative 16 plus 5 is negative 11. Negative 11 minus 8 is, maybe I did do something wrong here, because I think that comes out to be a negative 19. So let's double check this again. So I got 2 for the answer. Negatives, that's because 6 times 2 is 12, right? Sorry about that. So that'd be negative 16 plus 5 is negative 11. Negative 11 minus 12 is a negative 23. So it does check off. It does make it true. Okay, so we solved it correctly. We got our correct solution. Okay, I want you to take that second equation right there. I want you to solve it and check your answer. So pause the video and do that, and then come back and we'll go through it together. All right, so just following our steps, simplify both sides. I've got like terms over here. So it'd be 1 minus 4 plus 6 would be a plus 2n equals negative 5. So I have to get rid of the 1, and I have to get rid of the 2, and it's 2 times n. So I'd have to divide by 2 to get rid of the 1. Whenever it's a separate term, see how the 1's separate from the n? Whenever it's a separate term, you get rid of it by adding or subtracting. So I'm going to get rid of the 1 by subtracting 1. That would be 0. 2n equals, subtract those, negative 6. It's 2 times n, so I'm going to do the inverse, divide by 2. Right, 2 divided by 2 is 1. So 1n equals negative 6 divided by 2, which is negative 3. Okay, let's double check and make sure it works. This one's a little tricky to plug in, but I go 1 minus 4 times negative 3 plus 6 times negative 3, and that's supposed to come out to be negative 5. And you could plug that whole left side in your calculator just to check, but those two negatives would make it a plus. So we get 1 plus 12 is 13. 13 minus 18 is negative 5, so it checks off. So we got our solution there. If you do have parentheses, we talked about simplifying. Let's do this one on the left here. But if you have parentheses, again, you have to simplify everything on that side. So on this one, I would just start out by distributing. I've got to distribute before I can simplify anything else. So 2 plus 3 times 3 is 9. 3 times a minus 8 is a minus 24. I've got some like terms, right? The 2 and the minus 24 are like terms. So that would be 9k. 2 minus 24 is a negative 22. Now I get down to here. Now I'm just going to get k by itself. So I add, subtract, multiply, divide. So it's 9 times k. I'd have to divide by 9. I have to add 22. I want to add the 22 first. 9k equals, add those together, is that negative, what, 63, I believe? 9 times k, so divide by 9. That's 1. 1k is k. Negative 63 divided by 9 is a negative 7. Okay, we solved the equation. Hey, when I go back up here, I just want to show you. So that's the answer, and we would check it. It does work. That is the correct solution. But if I go back up here, I just want to show you something. On this step right here, I said we want to add or subtract first before we multiply or divide. Here's the reason why, is we could actually divide first, but if you divide first, you have to divide this whole side by 9. So now you'd have 9 divided by 9, which is k, but you have 22 divided by 9. That's some fraction or decimal, and negative 85 divided by 9. Like if you solve this, you'll still get the same answer, but this becomes a lot harder because of the fractions. That's why normally, in most cases, when we get to here, it's just easier if I add first, if I add the 22 first, and then divide afterwards. All right, I want to show you one that has variables on both sides. We're going to skip past that one, and we're going to look at these examples. So I don't know why I have that one repeated there. Let's just do this top one up here. I have 15 minus 3n equals n plus 3. Okay, so our steps, and you have them written down, right? Step number 1 is to simplify both sides. Well, if I look over here, 15 minus 3n, there's no like terms. There's nothing to simplify. There's no parentheses. Nothing I need to do there. Same thing over here, n plus 3, nothing to do. So step number 2 is, if you have variables on both sides, I need to get rid of the variables off one of the sides. I can't solve for n until I get rid of the variables on one of the sides. So I have a choice. I can either get rid of the minus 3n by adding 3n, negative 3n plus 3n is 0, or I can get rid of the positive n by subtracting n minus n is 0. So just so I don't have to deal with negatives, I think I'm going to add 3n to this one. Okay, so when I do that, I end up with 15 minus 3n plus 3n is 0. So it goes away. That's what we wanted to happen. I wanted to get rid of the n's off one of the sides. Equals, this is a 1n plus 3n is 4n plus 3. So on that second step, if you have variables on both sides, you need to eliminate the variables off one of the sides by adding or subtracting. Okay, we can solve from here. So I have 4 times n, I need to divide by 4, plus 3, I need to minus 3. We're going to minus the 3 first. So 15 minus 3 is 12. 4n divided by 4. So this 4 divided by 4 is 1. 1n is n. There's my solution. Let's plug it in and try it. I get 15 minus 3 times 3. Does that equal to 3 plus 3? Well, 3 times 3 is 9. 15 minus 9 is 6. 3 plus 3 is 6. Hey, it checks off. We got the right answer. Okay, let's do this last one here together. Then maybe I'll give you one more to try, and I think we'll be good. So again, our steps are, see if you can simplify both sides. The 6n plus 8, I cannot simplify. The right side, I have like terms there, right? I've got the 8n and the 1n. They're already on the same side. They're like terms, just add them together. 8n plus 1n is 9n. I still have the minus 16. Okay, I get to this step. Okay, now I've got a variable on both sides. I either need to get rid of the 6n by subtracting 6n, or I need to get rid of the 9n by subtracting 9n. I'm going to subtract the 6n, but you could do either one. So minus 6n, but that means I have to minus 6n from this side. This 6n minus 6n is 0, so it goes away. 9n minus 6n is 3n. Okay, now I get down to here. I just have these 2 steps to do: add, subtract, multiply, divide. So I got 3 times, and I got to divide by 3. I got minus 16, got to add 16. I'm going to start by adding 16. So that'd be 24 equals, that would be 0. So 3n plus 0 is 3n. Divide by 3. N divided by n is 1. 24 divided by 3 is 8. Let's check and see if it works. I've got 6 times 8 plus 8. Does that equal 8 times 8 plus 8 minus 16? So that'd be 48 plus 8. That's 56. I've got 64 plus 8. That one is 72 minus 16. Get the same thing. It checks off. So we're good there. So really just the last thing is just combining it all together with parentheses. combining like terms, just kind of doing everything all in one. Let me just pick the best one to do. Let's do this one as the very last one. This is a tricky one. There's lots of steps to it. It's really easy to make little errors in this. So you just got to be really meticulous and careful about your work. Okay, so remember our first step is to simplify both sides. We've got a lot of simplifying to do. Over here, I can distribute my 5 through. So I get 30x plus 5 equals. Over here, I need to distribute 2. Be really careful. When I times through by the negative 2, it's got to be a negative 2. It goes with it. So negative 2 times 5, negative 2 times a negative 6 would be a positive 12x. So I just distributed that negative 2 through. Nothing else to do over here. I'm just going to leave it alone. But over here, I do have stuff to do, right? I can combine that minus 3 and the minus 10. That's minus 13. Okay, I get down to this step. I've got x's on both sides, on the right and the left. So I either need to get rid of the 30x or the 12x. So I'm going to get rid of the 12x. I'm going to minus 12x. That means I have to minus 12x over here. So 30x minus 12x, I believe that's 18x plus 5. That's 0. 12x minus 12x is 0. Still have that negative 13 over there. Okay, now I'm down to the area where I just have these two steps. Add, subtract, multiply, divide. So I'm going to minus 5. So 0, 18x equals, subtract those, divide by 18. Okay, negative 1. You go back up and plug that in there. This is a tricky one to plug in because of all the negatives. It does work when you go back and check it. So just remember those steps. You always start out, just look at both sides of the equation separately and just simplify them down as far as you can. Once you get down to there, if you do have variables on both sides, you need to add or subtract the x's off one of the sides to get rid of it. Once you get past that, you should be left just with a two-step equation. Add, subtract, multiply, divide, and you have your answer. All right, good luck with those.